Hey friends, Dean here. Before we get you on to your episode, I want to take a moment to invite you to our next virtual online trivia night. Wednesday, May 13th at 8 p.m. Join us either on our Facebook group or on our YouTube page for 3 rounds of fun trivia, music questions, movie questions, general knowledge questions. It'll be a fun time and a chance to win some prizes and have just a good relaxing night of some trivia at home. You don't even have to go out for it. So don't forget, Wednesday, March 13th at 8 p.m. Join us on our Facebook group or YouTube for 3 rounds of fun virtual online trivia. We'll see you there. Grab the garlic, the holy water, and the crucifix, because we're going in with Peter Vincent to hunt a vampire as we discuss 1985's horror classic Fright Night. Stay with us.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff, and Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast, Halloween edition. We are kicking off our month of October with basically a fright fest. We are doing Halloween-themed films and top 5s or top 3s throughout the month. In order to make sure you don't miss anything, guess what? You'll need to get your trick-or-treat bag open so you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook at 3324 Podcast and on Twitter at 3324P.
Yep. How are you, Dean?
I'm doing well. This is like exciting. This is our first themed. We're doing a themed month.
Yeah.
And no better month than October and Halloween to just bust out like the movies.
Yeah, the season's kicking in just right. The weather's nice. Hopefully it'll stay like this, get a little bit cooler. Leaves will change at exactly the time I want them to change. You know?
When is that? When do you want them to change?
Well, sometimes it takes a while. And here in Frederick, it's
okay.
If the weather's warmer, the leaves take that much longer to change. So,
do you have a target date or a frame that you're looking for?
Well, it is autumn, so I want the leaves to change now.
Okay. Well, there you go. Get going.
So there you go.
We're a few days in, and that autumn feeling is coming. And as we said in one of our live shows, you can tell because the pumpkin spice is in the air.
It's got my pumpkin candle in the background. It's
pumpkin spice candle. I have one in my other room. Yeah, I've got a pumpkin kind of orangey, peachy lighting behind me, trying to replicate a pumpkin, but it came out like a peach, I guess. But close enough.
Oh,
it works. So you found us. Thank you for joining us, as always, at the 3324 podcast. We're talking the best in music and movies and the music and movies that shaped our lives. So thank you for joining us weekly. And that's WEEKLY, not weekly like in weakling, but join us weekly for new episodes of music and movies. So we are kicking off this one with, this is our first one of our October month of horrors, and we are doing Fright Night from 1985.
Oh, one of our all-time faves.
This is one that is just not on the top of the list of movies to do,
right?
But on the top of the list of movies that we really love.
Absolutely.
And when we talked about doing a themed Halloween month of what because there's a lot you can go. You have endless options if you're going to do a month of Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
But Fright Night was like the first, I think. Probably one of the first things we thought of is like, let's do Fright Night.
Yeah, I mean, it was we collectively. I think we both love this film pretty equally. I mean, you and our friend Johnny went to see it, and I remember you guys were like, raving about it, and like, Coop, you got to go see this movie. You got to go see this movie. And you took me. I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun, but scary at the same time.
Yeah, it straddles a couple of lines. Let's get the stats going, and then we will get into this because we are quite excited. This is like us opening our trick or treat bag, and someone throws the DVD of Fright Night in. You just made our night. Like we can go home. We don't need to go to any other houses. We don't care about the little Snickers. We don't care about the bite-sized Nestle Crunch. We got Fright Night.
And that's that's actually if anybody wants to do that, I don't actually own this movie. Not, so if they really want to give us the DVD, I'm game. So
there you go. I don't know if it's on 4K yet. I don't know if they've got around to mastering.
No, I'll be happy with the Blu-ray.
There you go.
There's a special edition out there somewhere with,
and there's a great documentary too.
Yeah,
as well,
I'm dying to see that.
So let's talk the stats. Yeah. Since Eric is done begging for DVDs, I'll beg for Blu-rays and up. Eric is not proud. He'll watch a DVD, VHS, and he'll watch 8mm.
Well, I had to record. I think I still have it somewhere. It's a crappy recording off.
I think I have the DVD. I think I have a DVD somewhere.
Yeah, perhaps, I taped it. I think I taped it when I rented the movie. And my sister,
that's the best way to do it.
My sister used to watch it all the time.
Let's get going with the stats. This is. We got a lot of work to do because you can see we're already getting like off the track, which means we're hyper excited about this one. And we're gonna be geeking out and gushy. So this was released in 1985, written and directed by Tom Holland, but not that Tom Holland,
not the Marvel,
not Spider-Man,
right?
Not Peter Parker. He wasn't even born yet.
That's right.
That's when this. So this is the original Tom Holland, and he's a writer director. Had a $9.25 million budget, which is actually that's a decent sized budget.
Yeah,
for a relatively unknown filmmaker. And the box office was 24.9 million, so it made it back plus, which is a nice round figure. We're gonna dive a little bit into 1985 in film, also just to. I think it's important to go through what was going on in 1985 to really understand how this film fits in there.
Yeah.
We've got a really nice cast. Mostly at the time, a good portion of them were unknown or on the outer edges of Hollywood. So you've got Chris Sarandon as Jerry Dandridge. You've got William Ragsdale as Charlie Brewster. You've got Amanda Bears as Amy. And you've got Stephen Jeffries as Evil Ed.
Thompson,
or just Ed or Evil. They call them just Evil.
Yep.
The great Roddy McDowell as Peter Vincent.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to add this guy in. He gets no credit, and he hasn't really done anything. This was pretty much one of his few films. But Jonathan Stark,
you gotta include him.
As
Billy Cole.
Billy Cole.
Oh, if you had left him off, man,
dude. Yeah, strange dude. And,
awesome.
And he's really great in this film, but he never really did anything else. But he looks like a guy that you've seen before. He has like that everyman look to him.
Right. True. Yep.
So how we came to this is, saw this in the theater when it came out and loved it ever since. It definitely hits like you said, me, you and our friend Johnny. It kind of hit our sensibilities of, it's called a horror comedy, but it's not like a laugh out loud comedy.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a very clever horror film.
Yeah. There's a lot of humor in it. It's like situation comedy. Where where
a lot of humor and a lot of
right.
smart script writing that make it enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
right?
Absolutely. Yep. And the characterizations, the actors really sell it too. I mean, you got some great talent in this movie. It's just off the charts. The performances, it's one of those things where they take it. We talk about this many times, but it's like they take it so seriously and they deliver. Given the material, it's golden stuff. Especially Chris Sarandon. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So great. So great. So let before we get into that, let's frame this in what was going on in 1985. And because I think it's important because it was really back then in the 80s, especially in 85, there was like a lot of horror films coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also a lot of teen comedies.
Yeah.
And this kind of hit both.
That's right.
So if we're looking, I'm just going to roll through some of them, and you may laugh at some, but this is some of the stuff that came out in 85. Tough Turf, The New Kids. That's a James Spader double feature.
That's right. Yeah.
Heaven Help Us, which was with Stephen Jeffries and Andrew McCarthy and Kevin Dillon about them in Catholic school. Mischief, The Breakfast Club, Vision Quest, The Sure Thing with John Cusack, Ghoulies.
Oh, wow.
Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, The Last Dragon, Porky's Revenge, Desperately Seeking Susan, Private Resort. A lot of girls just want to have fun. A lot of these teen comedies, Just One of the Guys, Gotcha,
Teen Wolf, Michael J. Fox. Yep.
Friday the 13th Part 2, Secret Admirer. So a lot, St. Elmo's Fire, Back to the Future came out, also. So a lot of like those like really teen focused films. Legend of Billie Jean.
Yeah.
Better Off Dead, I think also. Just all this, National Lampoon's European Vacation, Weird Science, Real Genius. So I can go on and on, but we'll stop there. So, but I think it's important to understand what was going on in 85.
Yeah.
And how this film really had a foot in successfully in two genres.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the intent. It was more or less, what I love about it is the fact that he is very respectful of the material, given the fact that I think, Tom Holland's a big horror fan. And I think, I don't know if he's really big on the vampire genre in particular, but I love the way he took that genre and just had a lot of fun with it. And when there are a few examples of movies like this, that come to mind, where it's not a parody. They honor the material by
exactly. That's the key. It's an homage.
It's an homage
to something that is really corny.
Yeah.
But this movie is not, it's kind of not like it's not like Ed Wood, where Ed Wood is an homage to those films, but it was really like slapsticky and winky. Fright Night is an homage to those, but it's really just much more smartly done. It's kind of self-aware and it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it deals with the filmmaking is serious.
Mm-hmm. And
it's not schlocky and low budget and cheesy.
I would say another movie, that took this direction in the same vein might be Shaun of the Dead, Edgar Wright's film, like again, the zombie genre, but it's, both films, they have a lot of humor and that, element to it, but man, does it get serious, when the shit goes down pretty much, so to speak. I mean, it's just, and what I love too is like, it's very much in the moment. And you can't replicate this today. Like they try to do they have these things like Stranger Things where they go back to the 80s and it's celebrating the 80s in general, but with the horror themed thing. But here it's like, it's in the moment. We can relate to this character. We lived in a small town, just walking home at like 4:30, the lights are going dim. You feel like, a lot of the things that's going on in the film, you kind of think about this kind of stuff. It really, and again, it's like we were Charlie Brewster because we did watch this kind of schlocky stuff. We had these kind of shows like when we were younger, with a cheesy host or one of those shows like Thriller. I remember on WPIX, like late at night, especially on the weekend.
Yeah, so this is definitely a love letter to it.
Yeah,
to those types of films and kind of honoring it and then bringing that character into the real life. So let's talk a little bit about the cast, because you mentioned that in the beginning, that the cast, that's the thing too. And you said it, you hit the nail right on the head. As you said that they took this seriously. And from everything that I've seen, everybody that was involved in this film as an actor actively wanted to be in this film after reading the script. They read the script and said, this is something really special and amazing. I'm invested, not, this is a paycheck, so I'm going to do this schlocky film. Yeah. Everybody that read the script said, you know what, I'm not really into horror films, but I'm going to do this because I see it on the page. And that's something really special, because then when you get actors that are committed, you got the buy-in right there. They're going to give everything that they can to it. A lot of rehearsals went on with this. I think they actually rehearsed the film in its entirety like a stage play. Yeah. So everybody was familiar and comfortable with their characters, and then they literally shot this thing very quickly because they had workshopped it and worked through and taken feedback from the actors about their characters and made subtle changes. So great for something that you think is just this weird like come and go horror film. It's a little special.
Yeah, I mean,
a little special.
They brought something to the table and they wanted to kind of play with that, and the director was like, fine, So there were several script revisions. So yeah, I mean it and this cast just
God. So let's start with Chris Sarandon since you mentioned him. because he at this point he was probably the biggest actor, and he's not huge, but let's put it out there. The second film he made, he was nominated for an Academy Award for in Dog Day Afternoon as Al Pacino's husband and lover, Leon Shermer.
Yeah.
So right out of the gate, second film, he's already like making a name for himself, and then he kind of he did just some small stuff. I mean, he didn't really do anything big. And even Fright Night, I mean, that was a pretty good ramping up of his career in '85. And then '87, he would have a memorialized like movie history role as Prince Humperdinck in The Princess Bride.
Princess Bride.
Yeah. Which is the opposite of the seductive Jerry Dandridge. And Prince Humperdinck is just like this bumbling, just idiotic,
Yeah, that is it is a little bit more slapstick there. It is quite the contrast. But he's also in Child's Play, the first
which is directed by Tom Holland.
Tom Holland as well. Yes.
So that created a nice little working relationship. And then the movie he's best known for, but no one knows he's in, is The Nightmare Before Christmas. He's the voice, the speaking voice of Jack Skellington.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just kind of don't, it's one of those things where Jack Skellington, the image is so iconic, but the voice isn't something that that people make a big thing about. But
I think if you saw this film, I think you might make that distinction, because he does have in this film, when he is like full on vampire and he has those,
a little bit
voices.
Yeah,
you could definitely tell, like because it's almost like operatic in a way. He's like projecting his voice like in a really sort of strange way, and a different timbre and all this. It's just bizarre.
We can't pass through the cast without talking about Roddy McDowall, of course, as Peter Vincent as well. And Roddy McDowall is much beloved in Eric and our circle as Cornelius, as from Planet of the Apes. That is the crowning achievement of I think his career in the Apes films, and then he was in the TV series Planet of the Apes as Galen as well. And that's like forever Cornelius. Go Ape.
That's correct. But again, he was in a lot of TV. He was in The Twilight Zone. He was
very prolific, but we know him for one role.
Of course, but every time you see him though, you love him. No matter what he does, everything he's in, you just love him. And because of that character that he portrayed. Yeah.
And oddly enough, he had played another character named Vincent. He was in The Black Hole. He was the voice of Vincent in The Black Hole.
Yes.
The robot.
The battered robot. That's right.
Yeah. Which is another cult classic. So if you really want to see Disney get strange and try and do something serious and creepy, check out The Black Hole from Disney. So that was like, and Roddy McDowall was like acting since he was a child. I mean, he was acting in the 30s and in the 40s. How Green Was My Valley was like his breakout role. He was like 12 or 13. Did the Lassie films. I mean, if you look at his filmography throughout the 40s, I mean, he's working. He's just like doing everything. And then pretty much once he hits Planet of the Apes, that was like his job for like the next 5 or 6 years, except for the second one. He bowed out, but then came back, did the TV show, and then did a lot of that TV work, Fantasy Island and all that kind of episodic, kind of weird, Rockford Files or whatever it is.
Of course. Yeah.
He did that. And then you've got William Ragsdale as Charlie Brewster. Hadn't really done much before or since. I mean, he was in the sequel to Mannequin and kind of some of that 80s fodder. Didn't really capitalize. And then Amanda Bears as Amy Peterson, and of course she would hit pay dirt not 2 years later, being in a little sitcom called Married with Children. As Marcy. And that became like that show just took off and wrote the meal ticket for her. I mean, you didn't really have to do anything after that.
And then Mr. Stephen Jeffries
Evil again, kind of toiling in the 80s as well. Kind of didn't do too much. He did another horror movie called 976 Evil after this, but he was in that movie Heaven Help Us, which I really like too. That's a really
oddly
nice
enough,
movie
he's not a horror fan.
Yeah,
he like admitted as much. He's like, when he read the script, he's like, I'm not, but he, again, like we said, he thought the script was good enough to come in playing this sort of oddball character. It's in the
evil.
film. It's evil, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that as we talk about the story.
Evil Ed.
And then, of course, Jonathan Stark. I mean, his
there's nothing to say about Jonathan Stark except for
no. I'm sure he's probably in a lot more things that we just don't. Again, it's probably a lot of TV type.
No, he really didn't do much. He became like a producer. Like he kind of didn't really do much after this as far as acting. Very strange because he's got kind of good looking guy, and yeah, he did some writing and some producing and not much acting though. Not much to find about him, which is kind of strange. But pivotal role here, really, kind of he provides a little bit of the comedic or comic relief, as it were, when Charlie brings the cop over to the house because he saw a body being loaded into the Jeep, and he's just making fun, I killed him. Yeah, I did kill him, or just really making fun of, vampires, like really just kind of playing it up and not acting creepy like you would expect or guilty. So it's just kind of
to put it into perspective. He plays Jerry Dandridge, his familiar. He is the guy that kind of does, paves the way to fix the house up or in this case, black out the windows and such. And he's like, he can walk around in the daytime.
Kind of like a living dead. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He's kind of the in-between character, like Renfield from Dracula or
Renfield plus, I think, right?
Because or Straker to Barlow from Salem's Lot, kind of, so that that kind of
he's kind of the working man.
He's like the watchdog. He's like the the sort of, he looks after the master,
but he's one of the undead. Let's get rolling with this film then, because it's really a unique spin. It's not reinventing the wheel, but I think it's reinventing the wheel with how they handle the material. So I mean, we've all seen movies before where somebody has seen something and nobody believes them, right? And they think they're crazy. Spying. They saw a murder. They saw this. They saw that. Well, this is the same type of thing, but people move into Charlie Brewster's, the house next door for Charlie Brewster. Mm-hmm. And Charlie is looking out the window and sees some strange things going on, most notably a coffin being brought into the cellar.
That's right.
Which really starts the whole thing into motion. What
I love, like you said, it's like, everything is familiar, even like the whole vampire thing and all the rules. It's like the rule book of vampire. Can't walk around in the daytime. None of these things were trying to do anything new here. All the tropes are there, because it all happens in the shows that they're watching and the material and the schlocky stuff that they're into. So it plays out that way exactly in the real situation. He can't see himself in the mirror, all the holy water, all of that kind of stuff.
Yep. The crucifix.
They didn't bother to change any of that. Probably the only major change I think that came to this was it's probably one of the first effects laden vampire movies, where like the effects in it are kind of a step up from what we're used to seeing with a lot of camera tricks and a lot of practical effects, a
lot of practical effects in this film, which was really great for the time. I mean, these effects I think were really good for the time,
but also a lot of like that up in the ante kind of Spielbergian, like you had Richard Edlund working on this film, doing the special effects. Of course, he worked on Star Wars, and so to me, it's kind of like Poltergeist in that way, where it's kind of a step up and trying to do something bigger than what we're normally used to seeing, especially in like transformation sequences and that kind of thing. So
definitely not schlocky, definitely not on that low budget let's stuff. Get this knocked out. It's definitely not on that let's get it knocked out, let's kind of get a horror film out there. Mm-hmm. Definitely some money spent by Columbia Pictures, which distributed it. And I think it's important also to kind of, you mentioned the effects and Richard Edlund. I was going to get it to the end. There's an effect at the end that's very Raiders of the Lost Ark-ish.
Of course.
Which when I was watching it again, I'm like, recently, I'm like, wow, they really stole a lot from Raiders.
Yeah, of course.
At the end, and I was like, it's really there. But before we get to that part, this is like the classic person seeing something, no one believing them. In this case, it's a vampire. And of course, when no one will believe you, who do you go to when you need to kill a vampire? Is you go to like the late night schlock horror host, right? Which is Peter Vincent, in the mold of Zachary and Elvira and those types of TV show horror hosts, where they would show like these really cruddy horror films and kind of talk in between. And his character, Roddy McDowall's name is Peter Vincent, in homage to two horror icons, Peter Cushing and Vincent Price.
Yep.
And originally Tom Holland wanted Vincent Price for this film, but at this point, Vincent Price was like, I'm done with the whole horror thing. It's kind of like a stain on my career right
Which
now.
Which is kind of odd because, I mean, one more movie I don't think would have made a big difference there. But
well, he came back and did. He did Frankenweenie anyway, didn't he?
And Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, so.
I mean, like I said, I mean, if that's what you're known for, I mean, why not? I mean, it's a great script, come back. But I really can't see him in this role. I'm glad he didn't do it, in a way, because I don't think he could have done some of the things that Roddy McDowall,
he was definitely older than Roddy McDowall at that point too.
Of course, yeah.
Because Roddy McDowall had to age up for this movie.
That's right.
Right, he was too,
he was still
hair.
The shoe polish.
It looks like it's a mold. It looks like they cast that hair.
Yeah, especially when you're watching in high definition. It really,
it looks like they cast it out of foam and put it on his head. Like that was their idea of like old hair. It looks so stiff and rigid and was not moving it, but it's fine. It fit because
it does it fit
that character, because that character was kind of like frozen in time of being the character that he was on TV when he had his old show or when he was in films. And
everything about the character is an illusion. It's like he doesn't even believe in this stuff, which is odd. He does it for a living. He's not very good at it. And it's like, and that's the thing. He's this really bad actor, and he doesn't believe in this stuff. And of course that plays out in the story as we go along. There are three different levels of, I guess you could call it, faith in a way, and in the belief system in this movie. You got Charlie, who's the innocent, and of course his belief is real. It's totally genuine. You got Evil Ed, who's, I think, probably into this stuff, but probably doesn't want to be like reveal how deep he's into it, which explains why he's
just into it, but doesn't really believe that it's real.
Yeah, but everybody knows that he's kind of like odd, and
he's like the weird kid and into weird stuff, into the occult, but doesn't necessarily mean that he believes that it's real. It's just I don't think it's like
the belief. It's kind of a mid-level belief, but I think he might be into some darker stuff than we see. I think I kind of take that from the character, and he just doesn't want, he's kind of, which is, I think, is why Dandridge singles him out as and turning him into, and bringing him along with him. So, but we'll get there.
Well, they allude to that, where he's like, no one will pick on you, no one will beat you up. So it's kind of like playing on that he's an outcast or an outsider, and playing on those insecurities and saying this, come with me and you'll never feel that way again.
Which again is something that I know I could relate to in a bit, in a way. But so the characters felt real. And normally in the 80s, like I really wasn't watching a lot of movies that dealt with kids so much, because we were more into like the big heroes like Indiana Jones and the action films and Schwarzenegger and that kind of thing. So this is one of the movies about kids that in this situation that you're really rooting for these kids and you really identify with them. Very, very few movies that achieve that, I think.
Yeah, and this is one of those, and the way they just handle this material too is to take on the vampire. It's kind of like Jerry Dandridge is just kind of like a vampire, but he's not looking to hurt anybody. Meaning he's just kind of going through life. He's not like a monster terrorizing the area. He's just getting his food, moving into a house, and getting his artifacts, and kind of it dresses like a regular guy. So there's nothing like mysterious or vampiric about him. He's really suave looking and really dresses nice for the 80s, I have to say.
Especially
he's got that iconic gray leather jacket, which kind of replaces the Dracula cape. Like that's their version of it. He's got the red scarf. So that's kind of like the 80s replacement for what would be the iconic Dracula outfit. But otherwise, when he's walking around the house, he's just kind of wearing like, pullover shirts and just kind of like that stuff that you saw back then in the 80s. So yeah, he's very unassuming and does not give off the impression that he's anything.
Right. I don't think he wants to necessarily transform the whole town into him being like this evil person where he wants people to follow him. He's just, like you say, he's like trying to he's incognito. He's murdering people.
Yeah, no doubt.
Obviously for food, but they're getting rid of the bodies too. He's not turning them into vampires. he's just it's just food. It's so yeah. So but unfortunately, poor Charlie witnesses this, and that's when the story gets rolling. Living with his mom, and again, a very familiar '80s trope with the single.
Yeah,
parent.
the mother's absolutely clueless. She's beyond clueless. I think you had a problem with the parents in Ferris Bueller. This mother is even further out there. She's just like Charlie.
She's just ditzy. She's in her own little world. She's definitely.
I think she's there because the story needed a parent to be in the house as like the homeowner.
Yeah.
Like she really serves no other purpose except for just kind of like, Charlie, did you have another nightmare? And Charlie, tell me about your nightmare.
Actually, she does serve a purpose in inviting Jerry,
inviting him in.
That's the key.
That's one of the greatest scenes too. Is he goes to see Charlie goes to see Evil and says, "Tell me about vampires. Tell me about this. Tell me about that." And gives him all those tropes that we talked about and said that he can't come in unless he's invited into your house. He has to be invited. So then Charlie gets home and is like, "Oh, Charlie, guess who's here?" And it's like, Jerry Dandridge. And did you see what he's drinking?
A Bloody Mary.
Bloody Mary. Yep. Great little Easter egg. Like throw that in that, like he's got the glass with the celery in it and like they're drinking Bloody Marys. I'm like, that is just like, so like, if you're not paying attention.
Yeah. The hand
like
tap.
You're going to miss it.
And here's another Easter egg for you. I don't know if you knew this, but why is he eating fruit?
Yeah, because bats eat fruit, right?
That the bats eat fruit. A lot of the majority of bats in the world are fruitivores, I think they're called. And so that explains why he's always eating an apple, so it cleanses the palate, so to speak.
Yeah. And
I thought it was really cool.
There's a great line in that scene. He's like, Charlie, you didn't think I'd come over without being invited, did you? Like he's acknowledging, like, because he knows that Charlie saw him. So there's kind of like this undercurrent now of they know what each other what's going on,
right?
But the mother's oblivious, like
yeah, because
and he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna come over anytime, you're gonna see a lot of me, and just kind of because he wants to kill Charlie Dandridge because he knows he's trying to make trouble for him.
Right, that's what because before this, that's when he brings the cop there because he knows that he murdered 2 women. It's all over the news. He's having trouble with Miranda Beers, who's his girlfriend, and he's not paying attention to her as a result of him being slightly obsessed, very Rear Window-ish, kind of, James Stewart, like getting obsessed with the whole
spying and watching,
and he's this guy's murdering and nobody believes me. Yeah. So, and so, so the mother, obviously she's a little repressed, I think, and she's just trying to meet new people. And of course, Jerry's good looking and so at any time, come over anytime. So he's like, I'll be here a lot.
He's like, I'll see you real soon.
And
literally does he know, like later that night he comes back and tries to kill
and the dread in his face, like it just, you could see his face go completely white and he's just, oh my God.
Yeah,
you feel for him.
He does such a good job. William Ragsdale does. Yeah. He has to anchor this film. Yeah. Honestly, like Chris Sarandon gets the villains always get the fun roles. He's got the hardest role because he's got to play it straight and he's got to play it seriously. And he really does. I mean, he does not go. I never watched this and said, this guy's overacting and it's just out of control. He had enough of that nervousness, enough of he believed what was going on and enough of like, we need to do something as well. Kind of reminded me a little bit of like Steve McQueen in The Blob, where nobody believed them what was going on, and he was kind of like trying to convince people. It was that same type of thing where all this stuff is happening to him, but no one believes him, and he's like, "You have to believe me. It's really a vampire." So Jerry goes up later and tries to kill him. Says, "Listen, forget about me. Like it's just that simple," and he won't. So he's like, "Okay,
he won't let it go," which unfortunately is
would have been
he's like the pure heart in it, right? He's got it. Oh, this guy's evil. We got to get rid of him. And he just won't let it go. And who knows if Jerry would have held his promise or not? But I mean, but assuming that he was living that kind of life,
I think so. I think he would have
just he definitely would have. So and then here's the scene where what gets me is like. The mother's sleeping in you talk about oblivious, right? She is sleeping in her room. Jerry like closes the door, like he rams the door, like he pulls it really tightly shut, breaks the door frame and and all that kind of thing. goes into the and he's whistling, Strangers in the Night, which was a nice little,
very clever.
Just the little little character moments that
it's like the first couple of bars of it. So you pick it up if you're paying attention. You pick it up,
and I'm sure that was Sarandon. It had to be like improvised. That kind of. It's just great. He's in the room and all this ruckus is going on.
He's like, we don't want to wake your mother. And he's like chucking him around the bedroom.
He's throwing him into the closet. The things are flying, like toys are breaking.
We don't want to wake your mother, do we? It's like, what? You're destroying this guy's room.
Picks him up by the throat and he's like kicking that little pinball machine. Like the glass on it breaks and the picture of his girlfriend falls out the window and it's just crazy. And then he tries to pull out a cross, and that's a great scene too, where Jerry's just like, he doesn't even look, he just grabs it. He just like, don't be naive, don't be stupid. He's like trying to shove him out the window to throw him out the window. And then he oddly enough, picks up a pencil and just stabs him in the hand. And then
through.
I never really understood why that would have affected him so much. Why would that affect a vampire so harshly that he'd be like, oh, like and screaming in pain? Like, it's not like he's getting a stake through the heart. It's
no, but it's not like he's superhuman. I mean, they never gave any indication that he couldn't be hurt. He just can't be killed. So that hurt like just as it would with anything else. And then that's when the mother wakes up and is like, Charlie, let me out. And he kind of,
but this is where you see him. He transforms into this hideous. He turns around and all of a sudden he's this hideous beast-like thing with the fangs and the long fingers. The makeup is
so great on this.
Oh, it's exceptional.
The stringy hair, and he's got like the skin is all just like
you can't beat it.
Textured
you can't beat that look. That
classic,
80s,
such a classic look. So so Jerry gets thwarted. So at that point, Charlie needs help, and he needs big time help. So he goes to see Peter Vincent at the studio. And says, the best way to kill a vampire is to get a vampire killer. And that's what, to be clear, that's what Peter Vincent did in the movies as an actor. But that's, if the cops won't believe you, who else do you turn to? So you turn to Peter Vincent, and Peter Vincent just
in his naivete, he thinks that Peter Vincent he's really an advocate for it. He really believes in this stuff because, that's what he's been doing. But he doesn't. And that's sad. It's really sad to see.
Well, why would he?
When he goes and he goes,
he's an actor.
I know, but he goes to see him, and he's just like this little, like small impish guy, like he's just living alone, and that's what makes me sad. It's like he's a down on his luck actor. He's not even successful.
Yeah, it's barely like a 1-bedroom apartment that he lives in. It's like a half bedroom, and it's kind of like very meager and living in the past, looking at his old photos. Like, oh, it was my best role. So Amy and Evil get in touch with Peter Vincent and say, listen, this kid's crazy. Do us a favor. We'll pay you. Be Peter Vincent, and let's go to this guy's house and pretend to do vampire tests. It's so brilliant. Like, pretend to do these vampire tests on him because we know he's crazy. We know that he's not a vampire. So it's not even like the side characters are even buying into this yet, but they're kind of placating him and saying, yeah, let's do a vampire test like you did in this movie, Orgy of Blood or whatever it was called. And this will be done. It'll prove it. And we'll be done with it. The thing is that, Charlie already knows a lot more. It's not even a suspicion anymore, or seeing a coffin and some weird stuff. It's like, he's already been confronted. So I think we're past the point of him being convinced.
Right. Well, this, which is kind of odd, but the thing of it is too, it's like, it does say something about Jerry. Like we mentioned, he just wants to be left alone. He could kill them all. Yeah. I mean, they're all standing in that room. He could have killed them all, but he doesn't.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a smart thing for him to do. So it's
so instead of, he doesn't even like, okay, we'll do this instead of me having to kill Charlie. I don't really want to kill the kid, but he's trouble for me. So they go through with this thing and this ritual, and he gives him the quote unquote holy water, which is just tap water. He drinks it. And of course, a little bit reluctance there.
Yeah, he's not sure. There was one thing when he held it over the fire. I thought maybe he was trying to. When I first saw it, he kind of like took it and looked at it. It's in like a little glass vial. Then he held it near like the fireplace, and I thought maybe he was doing something to it that would like just in case if it was holy water, that it would like, like kind of some type of antidote that he was like some kind of magic he was doing. And then he opened it up and drank it, and it was like
nothing happens. And so Peter Vincent's like, so Charlie, are you convinced? And Charlie's like, he doesn't really, no, this isn't right, but he's like, no, Charlie. He's like, don't make me a liar, young man. Like, he's like,
well,
but
also,
it's Peter Vincent. It's his hero. So
but there's also a threat.
To him.
There's also a threat from Jerry is you've caused your friends enough pain, haven't you? We wouldn't want to cause them any more pain, would we, Charlie?
Right.
So there's this veiled threat. Again, there's an undercurrent of the people that don't know what's going on in these scenes.
Yeah.
And then there's the undercurrent of Jerry and Charlie know exactly what's going on, know exactly how they're communicating with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jerry knows that Charlie knows the secret and can speak to him in these veiled terms, but speak to him directly.
Yeah.
Whereas as everyone else just thinks, he's being unhinged and you're causing us a bunch of pain by inconveniencing. But no, it's like, I'm going to hurt these people.
Yeah.
So
Peter Vincent, he pulls out a mirror, like a little compact mirror, and as they're leaving, and what was he doing there?
Checking his gray,
checking his makeup or whatever. What was he doing there?
He's like looking at his really awful hair.
So, but he doesn't see Jerry in the mirror.
Yeah, he sees everybody else, but he does not cast a reflection.
It's that moment where he knows Charlie's telling the truth. So he drops the mirror. The mirror
becomes
shatters.
Terrified.
And he just like completely terrified. And of course, Jerry, when they all leave, the kid, Billy Cole's like, oh, they'll never believe now. And he's like, and he steps on the piece of the glass. And he's like, no.
Yeah, you hear like that crack. It's like,
and he knows, now we know, like, oh, well, cat's out of the bag. And so he has to deal with the problem now. Poor Charlie, he's just going nuts. I mean, right now he's just at his wit's end. And now, Peter Vincent is like, what's wrong with you? And he's like, nothing. And he's like, he's terrified. And at this point, it's like he starts to see the weakness in Peter Vincent. Like his hero is not who he thought he was and that kind of thing. And he kind of leaves them, to their own devices. I can't get involved in this.
He does admit that he knows.
Right.
And then he drives off. He goes, that's it. Like, fine, I'll give you that. I'll admit it. And that's all you're going to get. And he drives off in his little, his little like foreign car, whatever that little thing is. He drives off. Is like that little.
I always thought it was the car from Columbo. Really, it looks like it. Like it's like the Columbo's car.
It looks like a Mercedes, but like an older one or something. I don't know what it is, but it's got that little car. He just like kind of drives off, and he's like, "Yes, are you happy now?" Like or whatever. It's like
Okay, so this is the scene. I watched the movie twice in prep, and
me too.
And it's like I don't understand this scene though. I don't understand why, if he lives right across the street, why they go to town? Why does him and Amy where does Amy live though? Does she live
wherever
in town?
She lives, wherever she lives, they needed to get her.
Okay, because that always baffled me. Like he lives right next door.
His car got trashed too. Don't forget, he had that really cool Mustang.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the prop guys just spray painted like gray spots on it to make it look like it needed body work.
Yeah,
that Mustang is gorgeous. They just took a red Mustang and they sprayed gray spots on it to make it look like it was older.
Yeah.
And you could tell if you look at the car when you watch the movie, that is not an old Mustang. I mean, it's an older Mustang, but it was in great shape and they just like propped it up to do it. But yeah, they needed to walk her home. So of course at night, you got to get these characters out where they're vulnerable and not home.
And
so
this is where it like you could definitely tell it's the 80s.
Like
the alleyways with the steam rising up. It's like a music video, like
the club with the neon.
Yep, and
Club Radio was the name of the place. But yeah, it's got that. You know what I noticed about you speaking about the 80s is what I did notice about the film is everybody, like the young characters and pretty much everybody, dressed like they were in the 80s except for Charlie. Charlie always wore slacks with like a shirt and a jacket, and everything
like preppy, very preppy.
Not like even more so, I think. Because Evil kind of dressed in like the 80s. He was wearing like the bomber jacket and those pants, and Amy dressed in like the typical what you saw in that time of the 80s. Yeah, but he
Yeah.
dressed like Father Knows Best for some reason.
Yeah,
It's
he was
just
like a
really
professor.
strange.
He looked like a
Yeah.
real like academic.
He dressed
you know,
older. He
like a
dressed kind of
college kid.
almost like Peter Vincent style, like not as Sherlock Holmesy as Peter Vincent's outfit. Like,
Yeah.
right?
he's
It
got
was
the
like
he's got the cape, you know, like a,
yeah,
you know,
with the long
the poncho,
things.
whatever.
Yeah, it's just so they got to get Amy home, and now Jerry is out on the hunt. He's out now. The movie really actually, this is when the movie starts to really pick up steam, because now things start moving. Everything up until this point was just kind of like a dance,
Mhm.
right? A duel between the two of them of what's going to happen, who knows what, who's
Yeah.
finding out about it. And it's at this point now that you said it, the cat's out of the bag. Peter Vincent knows who he is. So now Jerry's kind of like, okay, I gotta shut this down, because it's going to,
Yep.
if 2 people know, then 3, then 4, and they just have to convince. So yeah, there's a great scene at the club. They're hiding out in this 80s club, of course. It's 80s dance club, which is very much in the style of 85. And Charlie's calling Peter Vincent, and he says, you gotta help us. You gotta do this. And this is the whole, there's always, in vampire movies, there's always the long lost love, and even that trope is in this film too, where Amy resembles, someone from Jerry Dandridge's past,
Which was
years
Chris
ago.
Sarandon's idea, by the way.
Yeah.
This was not planned by Tom Holland. This was, let's make her one of like his lost loves, like Dracula, like, know, it goes, because she looks just like her. So that's how he tries to steal her away. Evil Ed, like he like splits up from them.
Yes.
They go to the club. He goes down the alley. Jerry
to take a shortcut, which is always trouble. Alleys are never good.
No, of course not. Especially rain-soaked alleys that are filled.
Yeah, I'm not taking any shortcuts down an alley. I'll go the long way. I'll get my extra steps in, and it'll be fine.
So Jerry, unfortunately, finds Ed, and he pretty much turns him right on the spot, which is really fast. Typically these things, this is probably the one trope that they did change, where it takes a while for somebody to, it takes multiple bites to turn someone into a vampire. I guess I don't know, there's different degrees of, but
yeah, and that's the interesting thing about him, about Ed is
yeah, and that's what like my theory about him being somewhat more into this kind of thing than we're led to believe. And I kind of, assume that he might be into the occult or something, where he's dabbling into something about him that is inherently like easy. Like,
well, I just wasn't sure if he made him a full vampire, because later on he turns into like a wolf. So I thought maybe he wasn't like a vampire, but just something else that he, like a minion type thing that he turned him into.
Right.
Maybe it can be a vampire, but not like the full on, because he had
kinda,
like that wolf form.
It kind of shows you the power that Jerry has too, like, in being able to turn him so quickly, because he actually goes to Peter Vincent's apartment to try to get to, and after he rejects, Charlie, he goes back to Peter Vincent's, and he's like, let me in. And he comes in, and he confronts Peter Vincent as this really creepy thing with the teeth, and it's like, oh my god,
the teeth are like kind of sticking almost forward a little bit.
And this is
really really great makeup work.
And me and my sister, we quote this all the time, where and this is the moment where Peter Vincent steps up and starts to believe in this kind of stuff, because he pulls out a cross. He hits him on the head with it, and it like burns in his forehead, and he's like, what have you done to me? And he's like, oh, the master will kill you, so slowly. And it's like, we quote that all the time, because it's so over the top, but it's great,
Yeah, but it's funny because
at the same time, because he's just so, at that point, he's even more like hideous. Like the fangs have even gotten longer there, and it's like he's like constantly changing, like his into something more, like some demon or something.
But he's also like he still has the elements of Evil Ed though. Like he's still kind of he's like kind of playing on the monster thing. He's trying to scare him, and
he's still the
he's trying to scare Peter Vincent and kind of like not just a straight up monster, but still retaining like some of Evil Ed's character. And which is the great thing about it, is the monsters just don't become straight monsters. They're still that fun, that weird edge to it, that it's unsettling, but then in some parts it makes you kind of comforted because the characters are still acting like they were. They're just kind of he's just kind of vampire-y now, but he's still like making like goofy,
but that's
he had all those goofy reactions and the goofy screams and the faces, and he's still doing that stuff, but as the vampire.
But that's what makes it so surreal. Like that's what brings the sort of reality to it, is when they're acting that way, and then they're so horrific looking at the same time. It's like you don't know what to think.
You don't know how to feel about it. It's like, is he funny? Is it creepy? Is it,
Yeah, it's crazy.
So while that's going on, Jerry grabs Amy at the club. There's that moment of seduction where they're making that connection through time, and Charlie's trying to contact Peter on the phone, so he's distracted, and of course there's a big, he gets discovered as a vampire at the dance club because the bouncers kind of approach him, and he just starts laying into those people, slashing, panic, pandemonium. So he grabs Amy, and he's able to get out.
We have to talk about this scene as well, because, and I know this was probably built up to be something more in the story, like the script, I think, but how does, like, all of a sudden Amanda Beers like goes from this like timid little girl with a little bandana in her hair, and all of a sudden she's transformed into this 30-year-old like
that was part of the transformation of her. That was on purpose. Her hair changed, and it became like an up swirl or whatever you want to call it.
As they're doing like this dirty dance kind of thing.
She's kind of evolving. She's kind of evolving and being seduced and changing. And by the end, she looks very different. Than she's got makeup on. She doesn't look like this school kid, and that was intentional through that scene, that she slowly changes and becomes more accepting, and as a result kind of physically changes as well.
She's under his spell, more or less. So, So
seduced by him, so he makes off, spirits her away, if we're going to be talking in the
poor
Halloween
Charlie
vernacular.
is trying to he's trying so hard to fight him off, and he can't, and even the two big bouncers come out of nowhere, and Jerry just does away with them. It's like the Terminator, like he just dispenses with them.
He does a Logan on them.
Yeah,
scratch it. The face is all ripped up with the nails and everything.
And that guy was just like, he was like, whoa, what the, like he's like, he's got the red eyes and the teeth, and oh man, it's like, so that was that. And then everybody's there's pandemonium. People are fleeing, and they escape. And
they escape and make off. But the movie's not over yet, though, because Jerry says, well, if you want to see Amy ever again, come to my house and bring Peter Vincent. Right, the two people really that know. Right. And this is the whole the whole movie's been working up to them going into this house. Like, this is the whole payoff, and it is so well done. Again, the snappy writing throughout the film really comes full force, because now when they get to the house, it's got all the fog rolling out of it, just like you see in a horror film. Like, they pull up to the house, and it's like all this
monsters
fog
or the Addams
coming
family
out of it. They walk up and the door opens. So you're getting all that haunted house stuff that you've seen,
right?
And they kind of come in, and Peter Vincent has his vampire killing box with him, and he's got the cross, and
it's got the big stairwell right dead center of
the stained glass, that ornate stained glass in the middle of it. And Chris Sarandon just kind of walks, and all you see is like his fingernail, like against the banister, and it's cutting through the wood because his nails, his nail. And the great line is like, "Welcome to Fright Night." For real. Like it's just so, like, he delivered it just the perfect way, not campy, kind of like this, this is happening. You may not realize what you're in for, but this is going to be horrific. And that's when Peter Vincent like whips out the cross, and he walks right up to it, and it's another great line, right? We loved it the second time, but he's like, you have to have faith for this to work on me.
Yeah, he's like,
you can't just pull out a crucifix and expect me to turn away. And then Charlie pulls out his crucifix and believes, and
he's the true believer,
and,
right?
And is able to repel Jerry. And it shows you the contrast that Peter Vincent still isn't, like, he's had some things happen to him, but still not there yet. Still, this is still kind of like, oh, we're going to save this girl, but not believing that he's still actually dealing with vampires, but that they have to go save Amy.
Yeah.
because otherwise she'll get killed. So that's why he's really going. Still kind of in the Peter Vincent character of, oh yeah, we're going to kill vampires, but not really believing it.
So he dispenses with his cross, and Peter Vincent just like, again, he just turns on his heels, runs out of the house, just abandons.
Well, that's because Billy shows up and hits Charlie and knocks him over the banister.
Yeah.
So now it's like Jerry and Billy are standing there, and Peter Vincent's like at the stairs, like
at
looking up like a puppy. Yeah. He's like looking at like a puppy, and he just turns tail and like runs. He goes next door to get Charlie's mom.
Yeah, which you think he's just going to run away, but he does go to his try to to get his mom and protect her, I guess, and that's when.
And who's in bed? Who's in Charlie's mom's bed?
But Evil Ed, and he's
Evil Ed is back.
Your dinner's in the oven, and he's like, and he just once again he tries to thwart Ed's like advances or whatever. He's like
coming
after him, and he just.
He runs down the hall.
He runs down the hallway.
He runs down the hall and falls into like the banister area,
and
one of those pieces break.
That's right. And then all of a sudden, a wolf.
That's when Ed turns into a wolf. Yeah, which is that's a really neat scene too. It's just
it is, but I feel like
it's a heartbreaking scene. The back part of that scene is heartbreaking as well. Very emotional, I think.
So the wolf comes down, and then of course he he's about to jump on him, and of course he
stakes him right through the heart and off the.
And it takes absolutely forever for him to transform back into, and that's what's heartbreaking is like it's really sad. And they keep going back to showing Peter Vincent's face, and he
looks like he's like such sympathy. Like he's crying.
He's crying. He's like
he feels for him, like he's dying. And the one part of that scene where he almost because Ed is trying to pull out the stake, he's like half wolf and half man. The effects are really like, oh man. Really great stuff for the time, the practical stuff, really creepy. And he's crying and he's trying to pull it out. And Peter Vincent like almost reaches his hand out to like help him and then pulls it back, like realizing what he's seeing. Like at first he, such a great scene. Like I said, with lesser actors or people that weren't taking this seriously, these scenes might not have played the right way. And Roddy McDowall just gave it his all in that scene, just watching as he's dying and has that look of just like heartbreak. He wish he could help, but and he's sad, like kind of saddened by this whole thing. And then, so Ed dies and Peter Vincent grabs that stake and now he's going back next door.
Right. That's like the moment where he's like, we got to take care of business now,
Yeah.
So he's in full on, like, I'm convinced I got to help. I got to save Charlie. I can't let this happen to them,
Yeah. And while that happened, Jerry picked up Charlie, who fell over the railing and fell down like a flight, basically hit the ground, throws him in the room with Amy because she's been bitten and she's in her like transformation mode and kind of sweating and going through that whole, the teeth are growing and the hair is changing and all that kind of stuff. So he's in there kind of like, you wanted to see her, here she is, and here's a stake because you're probably going to need it for her by morning. So he sees what
you wanted her.
What Jerry
did. She is.
Yep, here she is.
Didn't they dispense with Billy yet, right?
No, because Peter Vincent comes back because everybody left. Peter Vincent comes back and the house is empty, so he finds Charlie. And he's like, oh, make a lot of noise and I'll break the door down. And that's when they're in the basement.
Yeah. Okay.
When Billy and they're getting the coffin ready because the sun is going to be coming up
He's
soon.
Like,
so they're getting the coffins.
He's like, we have a visitor.
So he senses that he was up there. So they got to go back up. And and it's funny, they get confronted by Billy first, coming up the stairs, and Peter Vincent's got the gun, and it's like you don't know anything about Billy because all you know is that you see him during the day.
You think he's human. You think he's
you think he's just like a dude. Like you don't know what. Yeah, he doesn't exhibit anything special about him, any powers. He's just like this dude. But I mean, you assume like whatever. But so he's coming at them, and Peter Vincent just unloads the gun. Well, he shoots him in the head, and that sends him down. That sends him down the stairs, and that's when Jerry comes back out. And he saw like what happened there. He saw him at the bottom.
Well, he
of the
gets
stairs.
Shot, but then he gets back up, right?
Well, that's not until after. That's not until after.
But Jerry comes out and he's still messing with them, like
Yeah, Jerry comes out and
taunting them even further, and Billy, like all of a sudden, there's like there's all this like fog comes out,
Yes.
sort of comes out of nowhere. And he's like, and then you see like Billy walking up the stairs, and he's like, and you realize, oh, he's
like
the
a zombie
undead.
type thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
And
one of the
his face is
undead.
like all pallid, and all of a sudden it's just, whatever. So he gets shot like 2 or 3
Unloads
more
the gun.
times. Yeah. And
then Charlie puts the stake right through
right
him.
to his heart. And that just like, and again, really, real great effects, and just,
This is where you get the Raiders effect. This is when I watched it, I'm like, I don't know why I didn't catch it like back in '85. I'm like, this is the end of Raiders when they're melting.
Yeah,
like the exact same style of effect, and like it. I'm not down on it because it worked really well, and it's a really creepy effect with the melting and the goo and the hands, and you see the bones, and
then he's just a skeleton, and then like the skeleton falls down, and all the bones
it's just all the bones,
everywhere.
and the skull slides across the floors like
Oh, it's just great. It's so, oh my god, so 80s, but it's fantastic. But then at that point, that's when Jerry realizes, okay,
He goes out on
the roof.
Yeah, and he's summoning Amy to wake up
in vampire mode. Now he starts to feel like he's in danger a little bit. I think they're all these now Peter Vincent. No, because he does it again, and he comes through, like he comes flying through that stained glass window, right? And then he's like, so like and they're standing there, and that's when he like once again he taunts them, and Peter Vincent holds out the cross again, and again he says, "You got to have faith." He's still laughing at him, right? I mean, that's that part, like, and he's just
that was after he kind of tried to summon Amy, and they like locked her in and kind of so she couldn't do anything. Then he jumped through.
But at this point, Peter Vincent does believe, and and whoa, I'm in trouble now.
That's a great scene, because he says stop, and Jerry starts laughing. That he's like in the full vampire makeup, and he starts laughing. And so again, it's just like these scenes kind of go from creepy to they take you out of it with like these other human emotions of him like laughing about it. He goes, you have he goes, you have to have faith for that to work. And that's when Peter Vincent comes and just again, Roddy McDowall just sells it. Like he really sells it. And he's like back, and you can see in his eyes that he believes it. And that's when it starts working.
Right.
And that's when Jerry gets, like all flustered. He doesn't know what to do. The cross, he's got the cross. And then all of a sudden they say, Jerry, all of a sudden all the clocks start going off in the house.
And then the great line of Roddy McDowall, my favorite line. He's like, you're out of time.
You're out of
Mr.
time,
Dandridge.
Mr. Dandridge.
look over your shoulder. And he looks over, and it's like the
sun is coming up. It's like, if you watch that scene from, behind, you could see like the sky getting redder and redder, when the sun is coming up, like you kind of don't notice it. And he didn't notice it either. That's when all the clocks went off. So, and then you get to see Jerry turn into a vampire bat and attack Roddy McDowall. They fight, and then they get down into, of course he's got to get to his coffin. And if they can kill him before dawn, Amy will be saved. She'll be like, everything will be reversed. So there is a time critical thing of they can still save Amy as long as they can get him dead before dawn. Mm-hmm. It can all be taken care of. So now that was kind of like a false ending of, oh, the dawn is here, he's going to get killed. No, he's able to actually turn into a bat, and he gets down into the basement. Yeah,
all he needs to do is get in the basement in the darkness and get
into the coffin, and he can kind of recharge and regenerate, which he does. He gets into the coffin and he seals himself in. And that's when one of the creepiest makeup effects happens. Is Amy finally kind of gets released, and she comes downstairs. And she's like, oh, Charlie, you said you'd save me. You said you would protect me. And he's kind of like coming towards her, and she lifts her face up, and she's got like the Joker face of all Joker faces with fangs. I mean, it is the creepiest. Yeah, it is one of the creepiest makeup effects, and she does it so well.
Yeah, it's
like she just turns around, and her face is just like.
I think it's the poster. I mean, when you look at the poster, it's that really big wide grinning thing in the middle, and that's
but on film, oh my god, and it's creepy because she's just like clawing after him and jumping on him, and it's like, oh, I'm like,
but she's not quite that strong yet. She's still in that mode where, because otherwise she could have just totally overcame Charlie. But they're fighting. Meanwhile,
Peter's trying to break into the coffin. He's trying to open up the coffin, and he finally does. He gets that coffin open, and he throws it open, and Jerry Dandridge is asleep. So he's still not hearing all the rustle until a big like kind of ruckus awakes him, and he turns and he looks at Peter Vincent. And that's when Peter puts the stake right in him. And that's that really neat effect where he kind of stands straight up out of the, comes straight up out of the coffin, like standing straight.
Like really
I don't know if they did that in reverse or how they did it, but it's a pretty neat effect.
Yeah. And he's still, and by the way, he's at this point, he's still like very hideous. He's still the creature. He's not the human Jerry. He just remains this way. Yeah. He's like the thing. So, and so there's two battles going on. They're fighting and like, the thing and it's like they're in the basement, but the windows have been like sort of blacked out. And by
well, he gets Billy the stake out first. He pulls that stake out.
He does. And Billy Cole was in the scene much earlier, he was like painting the windows black in all the windows of the house, and he was doing this in the basement. So they're kind of like as they're fighting, windows are getting broken, like sunlight streaming in, and every time he's near the sunlight, of course he gets burned. And so so it's just a matter of them
breaking window, like that became the thing. It's like start breaking the windows, like start throwing cans, and the windows are shattering, and different beams are like restricting where Jerry can go because the beams of light are coming in. And Jerry finally makes it. They get to the coffin, and Jerry actually Peter Vincent gets to the coffin. He's going to close it, and he closes it, and Jerry shows up. In his vampire thing, and he's laughing again. He's kind of like toying with Peter Vincent because he's got him like trapped in a corner by his coffin, and he's kind of laughing and kind of really almost like a cat playing with a mouse. And then Charlie runs over to Peter, and they're standing like up against a wall, and he pulls down a blanket, and it's just this big window or mirror and reflects all the light and just blows him away. And that's when you see he's like a skeleton, like a bat skeleton. Again, very Raiders-ish too with those effects of the burning and the fire or whatever.
You see all the different degrees of him, his transformations and like that kind of thing. Like it's really cool. Charlie is like holding Amy down, like because she's like trying to get up and
save him or do whatever.
One last ditch effort. You hear Jerry like Amy as he's like like it's and it's in the sound effects and everything going on. It's just really loud. I remember that distinctly in the theater. Like wow. And then when it just ended, it's like, and it's just like really quiet, and it's just like, wow, this is
just like Raiders. It was the same thing, right? Exactly. It was all that stuff, and then it went
pretty much
when the lid went on the ark. It like when it was like, whoop,
pretty much,
and it was like silent again. So very much like I don't realize it until I watched it like this go around. I'm like, wow, there's a lot there, but that's a good homage too. There's nothing wrong with that, especially since it had like people that probably worked on the same effects with it. Charlie kind of saves the day, and they go back to their life, and we'll leave that. There's a little tidbit at the end. I think we'll leave that at the very end. And it, you know what, this movie did well enough, and it did so well, or was such a surprise that it spawned a sequel, which you can leave. You don't need to see it.
I've never seen it. To be honest.
And then in 2011, they did a remake. Yeah, with Anton Yelchin, rest in peace, and Colin Farrell. Again, in name only, very little of the original type story, and pass on it. It's like, nope. Fright Night is a highly recommended watch as our first film for our October of Halloween horrors. And this is the first film you should watch is Fright Night, because we certainly love it. And we say it a lot, but it is a classic among classics in the horror genre. And we were there. We saw it in the theater.
That's right. And yeah, it's
don't tell anybody. Oh, wait, I just told everybody. So that will do it for this episode of the 33 podcast. Thank you for checking in with us. We've got more horror films coming out through the month of October. If you're listening in October of 2021, this is brand new to you. If you're listening any other time, it happened already, but it's still here for you. You can find us Instagram, Facebook. Go ahead and give us a follow there. We have a lot of fun. We do live shows every other week as well. And that's your opportunity to interact with us and get to know us and really pitch into the content of our show when we do the live ones. We really rely on our audience to do the heavy lifting for us on the live shows because we don't feel like talking. So check us out there. So that'll do it. Like I said, for this episode, for Eric, this has been Dean, and we will ask you to please be kind and rewind.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 Podcast and on Twitter at 3324P to join the conversation.